Okay, thanks for joining us. This is 25 tips for filmmakers, photography tips. We're going to try to just blow through these. Okay, never shoot straight on somebody unless dull and flat is your theme. And believe it or not, we're not being sarcastic when we say that. It could be that your character is actually dull and flat, so it would be appropriate to shoot them straight on, but normally that's not the angle you want. When trying to get a proper exposure on somebody, it's best to use the brightest facial highlight as the upper limit. That way the face will be properly exposed. The face is what conveys the most emotion, so we want that properly exposed. When framing, if you crop beyond the elbow, you might as well include the hand at that point. Otherwise, the person will look amputated. In this particular shot, actually her whole left arm is amputated, so it could be said that's not a good shot. This is easy to forget in run and gun situations, but you want to try to get as much face as you can. The reason for that is it is the face that conveys the most emotion, and as filmmakers, that's what we're trying to capture, is emotion. At least in Western culture, you want to emphasize, you want to put what's important on the right side of the frame. That's because that's where people's eyes are ultimately drawn. In this case, it's this young girl that we're focusing on, and we actually have a nice leading line going toward her. Watch out for distracting highlights. In this particular case, her face is overexposed and it's distracting, but also it could be something else in the background like a light. And for some reason, I mean, people are drawn to bright objects, so the problem with highlights is that you're drawn to them, and you may not want the person drawn to whatever it is that's blown out. When filming, try not to have people look directly at the camera because it creates this break in consciousness where point of view. If you're framing something and something's bothering you, hide it, crop it, move your camera, frame the shot to where you like it in camera, and don't think about trying to crop it out later in Photoshop. Don't overlook shooting through windows or other portals or openings. There's always a nice effect to create a frame within a frame, and sometimes it's easy in the the rush at the moment to forget there's things that you can naturally frame in. It's okay to repeat certain imagery, especially if it ties into your theme or message. Think about how they do advertising is they keep repeating it over and over and over again to drive home a certain message. Also, if you're seeing a lot of nose shadow on the face, you might want to just consider doing a silhouette or a profile shot at that point. Nose shadows can become very distracting. You could also consider using a softer light. Always keep an eye out when you're at a set or a location for bright or bold colors. They can really add a dimension to the scene that might not otherwise be there, and it could be something that's naturally there already. It could be a garage door or some kind of plant or a car. This is a good concept, is to always shoot as if you're photographing a king or queen, some kind of royalty who is very sensitive to their appearance. Someone said that you want to shoot as if, through the eyes of a loved one. So really be sensitive to shooting and framing it. You want to make that person look as good as possible. And always study the edges of the frame. There may be something on the edges of the frame that's a bogey or a distraction, and you want to try to crop it out in camera if possible and minimize the work you have to do in post. This image keeps coming up a lot, but second to the face, the hands convey the most emotion. So be sensitive to hands and where they are in the frame. Either keep them in or keep them out. And again, watch out for amputating somebody's hands in the frame. This is a key concept, is that actually lighting is more important than location. So when you're out and about and you're scouting for possible locations, think about the light, and is it going to give you the light that you want? Because ultimately, as a filmmaker, you're painting with light. You're not really painting with location. If you don't have a choice of your location, then bring the truck full of lights. You can never have too many lights. It's better to have more than less. You're going to get everybody out to a situation or a set, and all of a sudden you find out you don't have what you need, or you're short something. It's a nightmare. So especially if you didn't have choice on the location, bring as many lights as you can. For drawing attention, movement trumps brightness and brightness trumps color. So when you look at a scene, whatever is moving is what you're going to look at first. And then second, you're going to look at the brightest object. And the third thing is the most saturated color. So be aware of that when you're framing shots up. Watch out for horizontal lines. I don't actually have a picture of someone's face, but watch out for horizontal lines in the background, especially if they're dissecting above the neck. You want the lines to dissect if they're going to be in the background beneath the neck, so it doesn't look like it's not distraction, look like the person's got their head chopped off. Or if you're unsure on how to light a set or somebody, turn everything off and add the lights one by one. That might seem difficult to do, especially if you have a lot of people there, but do it, and it'll help you regain a sense of what you really need. Less is really more, if possible, not always possible, but try to shoot on what they call the upstage or shadow side of the face. It's more flattering, it shows more dimension and texture, and in this particular case we actually did get on the shadow side, and this was a pretty girl as it was, but it just made her look even better. If you can, when you're starting a shot or ending a sequence of shots, try to start with what we call a wow shot. And I could do a whole separate video on this, but it's basically what we consider to be a confluence of elements. But it's basically an image that takes you to another world. It's really that pause, creates, makes people have a subtle gasp, that they're like, wow, that's a great shot. And it's okay to break rules. Just know that you are. In this case, this guy actually looked like almost a double exposure, but it's kind of cool. And so I know we broke the rule, but we thought it turned out to be a cool shot. It actually makes him look that there's two separate aspects to him, or two dimensions to him. And always try to consider if there's an underlying symbolic meaning with your images. Robert McKee has said, if the story is about what the story is about, you're in deep shit. And we kind of take that same statement and apply it to imagery to say that if the picture is what the picture is about, you're in trouble. And lastly, always ask yourself if the picture you're taking is something that you want to hang on your wall. And if it's not, keep reframing, keep recomposing until you get it the way you want. And hopefully these tips will be helpful to you. There's a lot to know in filmmaking, and we really, really, really do appreciate you watching and subscribing. And we're always open to constructive comments and positive feedback as well. So thank you very much, and have a great day.